Hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 260 of the Wannabe Clutter-free podcast. Today's episode is for you if money stuff has ever felt overwhelming, confusing, or just like one more thing on your endless to-do list. I am joined by Brittany Flammer, a financial coach, mom of 5, and someone who really gets what it's like to raise a family on a tight budget. Brittany and her husband raised their 5 kids on an average income of around $40,000 a year, and they've managed to grow their net worth to over $800,000. How? Budgeting, intentionality, and a unique money system that includes multiple bank accounts for different purposes. So we are diving in today to the 5 bank accounts, plus a couple bonus ones, that she recommends every family have, how to use them to reduce money stress, and why having more accounts might actually simplify your life instead of complicating it. So if you've ever felt resistance to budgeting or felt like managing money is just too much, this episode is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. But before we jump in, I want to say thank you to you for being here. If you enjoy this episode, hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss the incredible conversations that I have coming up. And if you want to connect beyond this podcast, come hang out with me over on Instagram. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free. And you can also get the show notes for today at wannabeclutterfree.com/260. Again, that's wannabeclutterfree.com/260. All right, let's get into it. Hey, Brittany, welcome to Wannabe Clutter Free. How you doing today?
I am doing awesome, and I'm so glad to be here.
We were just talking before we hit record about how we just find each other in this online world in different ways. And I am just so excited you reached out because I think this topic is going to be really great for those that are listening that are like, okay, I get that I got to get my financial life in order, but how the heck do I do that? And so I think you're going to give us some good clarity today. But before we hop into that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, I'd love to. I'm a mom of 5. Our oldest is 15, youngest is 6. So life's busy, but I'm a certified financial coach, which translated, no one knows what that means. Translation, I help people create and use a budget. Pretty much is what it boils down to. So people come to me because they're trying to get out of debt, or maybe they just want to save more money, or a lot of people, they make pretty good money, but like by the end of the month, they have no idea where it's gone. So people just want a little extra help because it's overwhelming. So that's pretty much what I do.
Awesome. All right. In your bio, we've talked about how, yes, you are a mom of 5. You used to live near the poverty line, and now your net worth is over 800,000. Now, you said that out there, so I'm just telling everybody because I know that's public. So can you walk us through this idea of how budgeting and setting up multiple bank accounts, which is what I'm really excited to talk to you about today, played a role in that transformation?
Of course. So I'm totally an open book with our finances, which is shocking for some people. So my husband and I have been married 20 years, and our average income over the 20 years is about $40,000 a year. We are making the most we've ever made right now, and he's a high school teacher. So we've never made a ton. We did Peace Corps. We lived in LA while my husband was in grad school for several years, and we had a lot of little kids. So life's expensive. I stayed home with our kids. I looked to work, but we had a lot of little kids. We never lived close to family. And so the cost of daycare just never made sense for us in our situation. So for us, it made more sense for me to try to be frugal at home. And so I tried like every budgeting method out there to figure out what would work for us. Did cash envelope. I feel like I tried everything. And what ultimately was helpful was creating the different bank accounts with automation to help set up. So we were able to do a lot of saving, even though we weren't making very much. It's this tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race. We just constantly were doing some savings so that we were able to do a lot of traveling and have a lot of great experiences, even though we haven't made a lot of money. And the concepts apply even now that we make more money, we still follow the same principles that we did when we had like hardly any income.
I'm fascinated. And so like you were saying before, I think we are of kindred spirits, right? And we talk about obviously different topics, but the way we talk about things, I think is very similar in that Yes, it's all these little habits, these little things we can set up. And the more we can do almost on autopilot. I know some people talk about the word autopilot in a negative sense. For me, I'm like, are you kidding me? If things can just be set up and done, I think that's fantastic because then I can use my brain power for the things that I actually want to be doing and I don't have to waste it on like being intentional about things that don't really matter to me. They do matter. The big thing does matter, but like all the little steps to get to that end result, I think it's fantastic. So I'm excited. Okay, so let's get going. Like you say, as you just said, every family needs 5 bank accounts. You need these different bank accounts set up. What are they? How do they serve a different purpose? How do they help you automate this stuff that you want to do?
Sure. So there are 5 that I say every family needs, and then there are a couple of bonus ones that maybe not every single family, depends on your situation. But the first one is probably most people already have this. It's one main checking account, and that's most people have a checking account, but it's like a holding tank. So I like to have all of the money come into this one account and all of the money come out of that account. So it's like a placeholder for everything. So there's not a lot sitting in that account. It's like constantly coming in, constantly coming out as bills get paid throughout the month. And that one's pretty straightforward because most people have that. But and I should add that a lot of people ask, what's the best bank account? And wherever you already have is probably just fine if you don't have any issues with it. If you're happy with where you are, stick with where you are. If you're not happy, there are so many out there, especially now online. If you don't have to go into a physical branch, there are so many options. But then the second one is a savings account for your emergency fund. Now, most people know we're supposed to have an emergency or rainy day type fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. I like to keep this completely separate from your personal checking account because if it's at the same place as your checking, it's really easy to spend it. So I personally like to keep this in like an online high yield savings account. So it's still easily accessible. You can still get to the money within a day or two, but there's less temptation. It's just a little bit harder. And anytime I'm lazy. Anytime I make it harder, I'm less likely to do it, right? So I'm less likely to tap into it if I have to actually log in and transfer the money. So having it somewhere separate than the checking is a big help for the emergency fund, and just having just an emergency fund, not having like your vacation savings mixed in there, like just your emergency fund. Then accounts 3 and 4 go together. Account number 3 is an account for the wife's fund money, and account number 4 is an account for the husband's fund money. There's no set or recommended percentage or dollar amount, but it's really important to have fun money. No matter what your goal is, if you are trying to get out of debt, if you're trying to save more, you still need some fun money to keep you going. And this has been really helpful for my husband and I. Like, he gets his, I get mine. And then when he wants to spend it on something, I don't care because it's his money. I'm not going to say anything. And it's the same, vice versa. We have totally different preferences. We spend our money totally different, but it's mine and it's his, and we don't argue about it. And then the 5th account is not a trick, but it's a savings account for your sinking funds. And I don't know if you don't know what a sinking fund is. A sinking fund is essentially anything you're saving up money for. So a lot of people do sinking funds without even realizing it. So saving up for a down payment on a house or a new car, something like that. But people tend to think about those, but people often forget about the smaller stuff. Think of the things that you spend maybe at least once a year, but not every single month. So for a lot, and it varies family to family, but for a lot of people, this is like a vacation or car maintenance, like car repairs. Or for us, like our life insurance is once a year. Some people's car insurance is once a year. Those kinds of things. They're not huge purchases, but still, if all of a sudden you get a bill in the mail, like our cars, just last month, we had to register all of our cars and they all had to be inspected. So it's $400 or $500 by the time we're done. And if we hadn't thought about it, that would have destroyed our budget for the month. But because we have these sinking funds, we put money into them every month. So you can have, I recommend high yield savings accounts for this as well. Or you can do it at your bank, wherever you do your checking. You can just open up a savings account and just move it out of your checking account, because if it's in your checking account, you're so much more likely to spend it. If you've moved it into a savings account, you're less likely, because it's like slotted for something. But the reason I like the online savings is because they earn much higher interest. And like the point of it is not to invest and earn money, but you might as well earn something as opposed to nothing. But also, there are a lot of online savings accounts that you can visually separate your money. So you can have one savings account, but you can have a bucket for your vacation, a bucket for your life insurance, a bucket for holidays and gifts. But it's just one account, one routing number. You don't have a gazillion to worry about, but you can see this is how much we have in our vacation fund, or this is how much we have set aside for this. So having that, because people just don't think about those irregular expenses because they don't happen every month. So thinking about those and setting money aside every month for those is so helpful.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you brought up the idea of the holidays, because I was thinking that too. As you were saying, like singing funds, I was like, oh, yeah, obviously we've got like the big holidays, especially you with 5 kids. I'm sure that adds up. So you've got your holidays, you've got your back to school time. So that is another big expense that I know that people will have as well. So I love that it can be these smaller things as well. It's not just the big house down payment that we're all thinking about, especially as house prices continue to go up and up.
For sure. And every family's different. I know some people that have a sinking fund for like subscriptions because it's cheaper to pay them once a year than every month. And so if you do Sam's Club or Costco, things like that. But then I see some people that with their income, that's a small enough expense, they can just cash flow it. So it varies. But kids' extracurriculars, that's a huge one for us, because there are some things that are monthly. Like we pay monthly guitar lessons and piano lessons, but like my son, we're going to register him for soccer and it's like several $100s, and it's not every month. It varies family to family, but having that in place just makes it easier. So when the expense comes around, you actually have some money set aside for it. It's not scrambling to come up with it.
Yeah, for sure. Summer camps. Oh gosh, summer camps.
Yes, for sure. And then just a couple of other like the bonus ones that maybe not for everyone, but if you have the high deductible health insurance, an HSA is beautiful. And I realize that not everyone has that, but if you do have it, there are so many benefits of the HSA. And then a lot of people, I feel like more and more I meet people that have some income on the side, whether it's like delivering food or dog walking. It might be small, but having a separate account for your business, even if it's not like an official business account, just having a separate bank account so that just to keep it totally separate from your personal expenses is really helpful. And then one extra bonus, if you have kids, which a lot of people do, kids banking account, savings accounts for them to teach them how to handle money and teach them how to save. So those are little, maybe not everyone, depends on your situation, but for a lot of people, those are helpful as well.
Okay, I love it. I think these are super helpful and it's nice to have them broken down. I had a couple questions as you were going through those, so I want to come back. Where on the wife and the husband money funds, where are those? Are those generally is it just a different checking account? Are they savings accounts? Are they at the same bank with your checking account? What do you recommend there?
Sure. So you can do whatever's easiest for you. A lot of people already have some that they're not using, like accounts that they don't really use that are just sitting there. So if you've already got one of those, go ahead and use one of those. My husband and I didn't have any of those. So we just created free online ones with like most of the online ones, you don't have to have any minimum balance or anything. There are no restrictions. So we just did that, and we did checking accounts, but you could totally have it in a savings account. I would say it depends on how you spend. So for example, my husband hardly ever spends anything, and then he'll buy something big. Like it was just not that long ago. We were on our way to take family pictures and he answered his phone and it was on speaker. So we're all listening in the car, and his friend was somewhere and was like, okay, I found this bike frame. It's an amazing deal. Do you want me to pick it up for you? And my husband's like, how much? And it was $1,000. And my kids are like, it's a piece of metal. It doesn't have wheels. It doesn't even have handlebars for $1,000. And my husband's like, yeah, pick it up. And I'm just like, okay. So he had the money in his account. So I was like, I would be ticked if he were spending $1,000 of what I had set aside, but it's his money. So he doesn't even carry his debit card with him. It's linked to a Venmo, and that's how he pays for most stuff. I have mine in a checking account. But once again, I do most of our shopping and most of our spending. So usually if I'm out and about at a store, I will just pay for it with my regular card and then transfer some money out of my personal fund money into our regular account. But I like having it separate so that I still get it, because I used to just lump it in and I'd say I have fund money every month, but I wouldn't spend it every month and then it would just be gone because it would go towards something else. So moving it into a separate account, it still accumulates and it's still like mine. So I'm more likely to spend it and not just get lost amongst all the stuff for kids and family and house.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. There's two sides of that, right? The first that you said, you won't forget to spend it because, yes, we as moms deserve to put ourselves in the front as well. I know it's a lot of things we're juggling and doing, but we can't forget about ourselves because we do such a good job taking care of everyone else around us. But then also too, it alleviates the guilt of, hey, I did want to buy this thing. Or like, if you feel like you're being sneaky, like you're like hiding something you bought, like, yeah, that's never fun. So I love that it totally eliminates both of those things. And thank you for the different examples because, right, everybody spends differently and has different preferences and different ways they do things. So I think that's great. You had mentioned being able to pull out different savings buckets. And I don't know if you have a preference or if you don't want to mention a certain bank or anything like that, but how does one do that?
Sure. So I have a cheat sheet for a comparison of a bunch of savings accounts that I can share the link with you if you're interested, you or listeners are interested. But there are so many online savings accounts that are all great. I think I heard you in one of your episodes mention that you guys like Betterment, and that's a great one. As long as they're paying interest, and like that fluctuates over time, but the online savings or the high yield savings accounts, like right now, 4% interest is a good interest rate. I know when my husband and I first got married, we were getting like 6 or 7% interest. A couple years ago, it was like 0.5%. But at your like physical local banks, it's like pretty much nothing. It's 0.01% is what you earn. But on the savings accounts, you could be earning a lot more. So having high interest is great. But there are three that I'm aware of that in my research that let you visually separate. And those three are Ally, SoFi, and Wealthfront. All three of them, Ally, they call them buckets. SoFi, they call them vaults. And in Wealthfront, they call them categories. So with one account, you can create multiple of those different types of buckets. Ally and SoFi, you can create automatic deposits into them, like reoccurring transactions, like directly into your buckets. Wealthfront, you can set up auto transfers, but then you have to like manually move them from your main account into your different categories. But I find those really helpful because I can set it on autopilot. I set up the transaction and it can happen every paycheck or whenever you set it to. So I never have to think about it. Like I set it up once and I don't have to do anything and the money's going there automatically.
Love that. Yeah, that's fantastic. I appreciate pointing a few of those out. So yeah, maybe we do have Betterment. I do love it. Actually, we have quite a few bank accounts. I was just thinking about that. Our daughter has one through the credit union because they have a connection with the schools. And so they give her like her 5% no matter what the interest rate is doing, which is fantastic for her. And then we have our brokerage account, and that's a whole different ball game, but there's a checking account over there and there's so we got the Betterment. And I'm like, okay, maybe that'll be our emergency savings. That's good because that one could stay there. And then we could set up the sinking funds elsewhere, which I think would be fantastic.
Yeah. So I should add that I personally like the auto transfer into the sinking funds, like the individual categories. But I know some people that have an account like Betterment or something where it's all of their funds are lumped together And they just keep track themselves of this much is meant for this and this is for that. I'm just lazy and I'm super visual, and I like to open up the account and say, oh, this is exactly how much we have for vacation and not have to do any math. So that's why I like that. But you totally can just keep it all together. I just think it's easier for my laziness to have them separate.
I'm on board. I'm not saying not to do it. I am on board. I think it sounds great. I am like, okay, family meeting later. Like, what are we gonna do? Okay, let's set up the accounts. I'm a total nerd on things like this. So I am excited to check it out. And I know people are listening to this. And as I said it, I was like, ooh, that feels a little overwhelming for me at the moment as I'm like listing all the different accounts. But I think it's a one-time investment in getting these things set up and put together and being able to say, okay, because I think it does sound a little, the word I was going to say is obviously this is the Wannabe Clutter-free podcast, and you don't want these accounts to create more clutter and confusion in your life. So how do you respond to people that say, I can barely keep one account going. Why would I want more?
Okay, totally understand where that question is coming from, because especially with decluttering, you're like, less is more, right? That's like the general mindset. And this is totally opposite of that. But really, I find it so much simpler. First of all, I can look at our checking account and know that we have taken money out for all of the things like the future expenses. So the money in there is money that we have to spend, like on our bills. But also think of it as like your closet or your clothing. You have your shirts in one spot, your underwear in a separate drawer, your dresses hanging up, your shoes separate. Keeping it all in one account, like putting all of your laundry in one laundry basket together, like all tossed in. So when you're looking for a shirt, you come across a shoe. It's just all combined in there. So when you separate it out, it's here are our pants, here are the dresses, here are the shoes. So you can see what you have. So like you said, it's getting it set up is a little bit more work. But then once it's set up, I've mentioned it's on autopilot. You can set the reoccurring transfers so you don't ever have to look at it if you don't want to. I mean, it just does it for you. So we have it set up. So payday's this day, then one day later, all of our transfers go out to our savings accounts, and I don't do anything. And I can log into my account and say, oh, okay, we found good flights for a trip to Hawaii. Do we have money in the account for it? This is how much we have. And of course, you're in charge. So if you have this much set aside for vacation and maybe this much is set aside for car maintenance, and you end up having a big repair you weren't planning on, yeah, you can take out of one account and move to another. But it's just the idea of you're thinking about these things and preparing for them. Setting up takes a little bit of time, but then it's so much simpler to me because I don't have to worry about anything and I know exactly what every dollar is meant for.
That analogy was so powerful. Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. Of course, we do this in so many different areas of our life, but money can just be so scary for a lot of people. So I loved how you broke that down into there are shirts, there are pants, there are shoes, there are underwear. You want to know what you're going for and what you're going to go grab that day. And that makes perfect sense. And then, yes, logistically, the idea here, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, is we found these tickets to Hawaii. Fantastic. Fits within our budget. I'm going to move that money from my savings account that I have over here to this checking account over here. And I'm actually buying everything out of the checking account. Is that correct?
Yep. So everything comes into that checking account. All of the bills come out of it. The savings automatically goes. And then so usually what I do, so we just get paid once a month. So we set it up. So once a month, our stuff goes into savings. If you get paid weekly, or you can set it up however you get paid. But then at the end of the month, so we put everything on a credit card. And then at the end of the month, I say, okay, this is how much we spent on tickets this month. So then I'll transfer it back into our checking. So it's 5 minutes at the end of the month I spend and transfer the money back over.
Okay, fantastic. All right, thank you for that clarification and breakdown as well. Can you give us an example of how this works in like real life though? So people are listening to this. Let's say their family makes about $60,000 a year. So how would they structure their accounts and what would you say would go into each? Like just an approximate.
Yeah, okay. So that's a great question. First thing to note is personal finances are
Yep.
personal, right? So there is no one size fits all, and people have different priorities. So for us, traveling and experiences are more important. So we put more money towards that, and we do a lot less money towards like eating out because it's trade-offs. That's just what we have chosen. So there isn't a right or a wrong or a set amount. That being said, a general rule of thumb, because people like numbers and
I do.
percentages, because it's so much easier. A general rule of thumb is to put 20% of your income into savings. And that going to savings can include retirement. That would include debt if you're trying to pay off debt, or towards those sinking fund type things. General rule of thumb, like no matter, I mean, there are different methods. People, the 50-30-20 budgeting method's really popular, the 70-20-10, or what I see the most is people just trying not to spend too much, and if they have money in their checking account, they can buy it. No matter what method, at least 20% into your savings is a general rule of thumb. So if we're talking a family making 60K, which is really close to the median here in the US, that's $5,000 a month. So that's roughly $1,000 a month towards retirement and these sinking fund type funds. That's really general. You can totally do more than that. But my husband and I, when we made very little, we tried 20% was our goal. And now that we make a little bit more, we try to increase that. But 20% is just a good rule of thumb.
All right. Perfect. Okay. I love that. No, that's great. That's good to know. It's always good to have at least a ballpark to shoot for, like, okay, this is what at least somebody who knows what they're doing tells me I should shoot for. So let's see if we can get there.
Yeah, and it's funny because I have a lot of clients that are like, am I spending too much in this category? And I'm like, I could care less how you spend it as long as you're not spending more than you make. It's what's important to you. Your spending should reflect your values. So when I look at our spending, we spend a lot on family stuff, and that's what we want to spend on. So that's good. But if you're spending a lot on something, but your values are here, that's when you want to maybe reevaluate and where can we make some changes. So there isn't a right or wrong. So it's personal, which is really hard, but 20%, good rule of thumb.
Just like I can't tell you how much stuff you should have in your house, right? It is personal. What does it mean to you? Do you feel overwhelmed? Then it's probably too much stuff. Do you feel like you're calm and peaceful and things are flowing? Okay, that seems like a good threshold. So it is it's hard because you can't really give an exact, like you need to have this, that, and whatever, but you can at least give the guidelines and the boundaries and what people should be looking for. So I appreciate that a lot. All right, so you talked about online banks and how they are very useful and you use a lot of them as well versus maybe an in-person bank, but are there certain features that people should prioritize? Is it no fees? Is it automation? Is it interest rates? We mentioned a few of those things. Is there a hierarchy of ways you evaluate an account?
Sure. So the first thing I look at is fees because there are so many options. You don't need to be paying any fees. So if you go local, that's totally fine. They just tend to have more fees. So you want to make sure that you've read like the fine print because I know at our local bank, it's waived if you have automatic transfers or if you keep so much in it. So just being aware of that, because there are so many options that have no fees, you don't need to ever pay fees for banking. So I look first at fees. And then most people, interest rate's the next most important thing for them. And the interest rate is important, but I don't think it's the most important factor because for most of us, so like your emergency fund, yes, interest rate, that's great because you're planning on leaving a good chunk of money in there and not touching it is the goal. So you want to keep that in, so like these 4% interest rates right now. That's great. But with the sinking funds, they tend to have a lot less money in them. And they're like, it's revolving, right? You're transferring money in and out. So I don't care so much about the interest rate. I still like the high yield savings because they have higher interest rates. But for me, the features of being able to visually split it and automate is more important. So I have some of ours in an Ally account, which only earns I think at 3.7 right now, as opposed to like 4%. So to me, that 0.3% is worth it for the convenience of not having to do anything and having it visually separated. But I would rather get the 3.7 than like the 0.01 at the local bank. But you totally can use local bank. Just make sure you're not paying any fees for it. So I look for no fees, which usually goes along with no minimum balances. And then I do look at the high interest rates, but I make sure that it has the features that are important to me. So like some people want, so some savings accounts, you can have a debit card that you can spend on. If that's a feature that matters to you, then choose that over interest rate. So it's based on what's most important to you. But there are so many options that you don't need to be paying for an account. So that's what, and I'm just cheap apparently, because I'm like, why would I go here and pay money when I get the same thing here for free?
No, I think it makes sense. And I think people don't realize how much those fees can tap into the interest that they might be making or the amount of money that they actually do have to spend. If you don't need to spend the fee, I'm right there with you. I'll call myself cheap too, I guess then, because why pay those fees if you don't have to? I want to circle back to a couple of the accounts you were talking about, both the husband and wife accounts and then also the kid accounts. Are there a lot of places I know, like I said, our daughter has one set up with our local credit union because it's tied into the school. So that has been an easy option for us. But for those people that don't have that kind of a tie-in or option near them, what would you recommend for the children's accounts? Because are online accounts available for kids in the same way?
So there are not as many, but there are online accounts available. So Chase has one. There are three I know of that I'm sure there are more than that, but there are three that I have tested and tried with our kids. I guess I should say there are a lot of, I don't even know what you want to call them, like allowance accounts that you like Greenlight or Go Henry, things like that. But they're pretty expensive. And when you multiply anything by 5 kids, it's expensive. So I like ones that don't cost money. Chase has one that's awesome, but you have to have their qualifying checking accounts that cost money. So I have never used theirs. But if you already had a Chase account and you're paying for it and you're happy with it, then that's a great option. Capital One has one that's meant for, they call it teen money, but it's really like kids 8 plus. It's a debit card. It comes with a checking account, but it's, as the parent, you are on it with them. You can send them money. You can send them an allowance. They can request money. We've used it and it was great. It's completely free. What we are using now and have been really happy with is called Crew Finance. And it's like a family bank account. So each kid can have their own colored debit card. They can create pockets, so they can have a pocket for savings, a pocket for whatever, and it earns interest. It's 3.7%, I think, right now. So it's been really great. And they don't have an age limit for it. You don't have to be a set age for it. So we don't have all of our kids using it, but our oldest few are on it. And I love it for teaching them because they have to buy some of their own stuff and everything's digital now. It's like you don't use cash very often. And so our younger kids will pay them in cash for stuff. But our older kids, it's like so much easier to send them money to their bank account when they've done their jobs or whatever. So there are a few, not as many as an adult, but those are some of the ones that are meant and very kid friendly that don't cost money and can help them learn how to manage their own money a little bit.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, with our daughter, so she's just about to graduate elementary school and move on to junior high. And so she's going to need a lot more autonomy, a lot more access to money for things that she's doing after school. And obviously, she has her bank account, but she doesn't actually have a debit card through there. So she does have her allowance, and then we take money over to the account and deposit it. And it's a lot to do. And yeah, the idea too, though, that she won't lose cash. You're not carrying cash with you to lose it at school or get it taken or anything like that is also a nice idea. It'll be interesting to see how next year goes, but I think those are some really good accounts for us to look into and think about as we are moving forward in life.
It's crazy as they get older really fast. It goes by fast. The days are long, but like the weeks and months and years fly by, I feel.
Oh my gosh, flying by. Flying by. It's crazy. All right, let's talk back about the husband and wife funds because I thought that was really interesting too. Obviously, I think it's going to help in our marriages, but tell us a little bit about what you've seen with your clients or just even in your own life, how it's helped maybe reduce financial fights or tension in relationships because money is one of the biggest stressors, I think, in households.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. So having the separate accounts. So my husband and I, our finances are all very joint, but we each have our fun money separate. And like I mentioned with the bike, like it was $1,000. And I'm like, that is more money than I spent for my first car. Like you're spending $1,000 on this piece of metal that doesn't even have wheels. But that's like what he wants to spend his money on. So it alleviates having our joint or having our fund money separate, really alleviates a lot of issues because it's his money to spend on what he wants. And by the same token, I have been buying plants and flowers in excess the last few weeks and he doesn't say a word because it's my money. So there's no fighting over that. But then when we have our sinking funds split up, it's not a can we afford this or not. It's we open it up, the app, or log into the bank account, and it's this is how much we have. It becomes a yes or no question, not a I want to do this. So obviously you have to agree on how much money you're going to put into those accounts, but it alleviates, it's not all lumped in your checking account and you're thinking, I see $5,000 there, so we should afford this. And the other spouse is thinking, no, but we have this and this coming up. So it's already allotted for and it's already sitting there. So it's more of a how much do we have? And it makes it a lot easier to decide if you're going to pay for something or buy something because the money is sitting there and you've already made the decision. And so now it's a lot easier to have that conversation, if that makes sense.
It totally does. Well, and even just that mental shift, that teeny tiny little mindset shift from, can we afford this? Which is going to make you feel really bad if you start telling yourself, no, we can't afford this. Because again, now you're going to have all these negative thoughts and feelings around, but I work so hard and I should be able to afford this stuff. And I mean, that little downward spiral that will happen very quickly becomes, yes, more empowerment. Did we set enough money aside to do this? And now you can take action and you can be more proactive about it. So I think even just that teeny tiny little shift, which seems really subtle, is actually huge.
Yeah, it is. And so I mentioned you do have to decide how much you're going to set aside for these things. So that is a conversation that has to be had. And I know one of the questions later on that you asked for is what's one action item people can take? And that one action item is to sit down before you have that conversation with your spouse, is to sit down and figure out how much you're spending already. Because most people really don't know what they're spending their money on. They just know that things are really expensive and they work hard, but then the money's kind of just gone. So I recommend to everyone to sit down. I'm old school, so I like to print out the credit card statement or the bank statement and get a highlighter and go through. But just look, even just 1 month, look at last month's spending and see where all the money went. So you know how much you typically spend on things to see how much you can afford to put aside for different things. So going through and looking at what you're spending your money on, and then from that, have a conversation of, okay, this is how much we spent last month. So can we afford that every month to set aside for this? That's where to get started. And I know that's like the least exciting thing to do ever, but it is so eye-opening. People find so much money, so many subscriptions that because it's just small things here and there that add up. And so if you sit down, you'll find you put most people spend a ton on Amazon and a lot more on eating out and groceries than they realize, which is okay if that's a value, but you want to know where it's going so that you can make decisions moving forward.
Yeah, so true. And it's so interesting. Again, I'm going to go back to that flip side analogy of I always talk about the little habits that actually can make things better, right? A 10-minute tidy up, just putting things away instead of putting them down. These little things that add up in a positive light. And In spending, it's all these little things that add up in a negative light. So it's still little things, these little habits we have really do make the big difference, whether they are going to make or break us. And so we do just, if we want these bigger things in life and we want to have a calm, clean home and we want to have finances that feel good and reflect our actual values, then we just have to take a little bit of time and rein in these tiny things. And yes, it's not always super fun the first time you do it, but it is so much better, and you will feel so much better when you rip off that band-aid and you do it. Just like when you think, that drawer is a mess, I don't want to do it, but you open it up and you declutter it and you're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Didn't take that long. Same thing, I think, with this process. Print out the statements, look through them, get out your calculator, add it up. It doesn't have to be super scary. And then from there, you can actually make empowered decisions versus sticking your head in the sand and just being terrified every month. So I love this. Brittany, this has been fantastic. So where can people find you? I know they're going to want to look you up and find out more.
Sure. So I am on YouTube. My channel is Brittany Flammer, and I just share different bank accounts and budgeting apps and budgeting stuff. And that cheat sheet I mentioned for savings accounts is on my website, and that's brittanyflammer.com. And I can give you a link for that.
Perfect. We will put those links in the show notes. So yes, you can go right to that and get that cheat sheet. I'm actually going to be getting that cheat sheet because I want to make sure that we are all lined up and things are running smoothly and automatically. So I think that's fantastic. All right, my favorite way to end every episode is with 3 rapid fire questions. And the first one is, what does clutter-free mean to you?
To me, it means being able to breathe. Whether it's I walk into a room and things aren't messy, or I look at the calendar and I know that we have things planned out, so I don't have to worry right now. Like, I know that I've prepared for things, so I can breathe right now because it's all going to get taken care of.
I love that answer. That one's fun. All right, number 2, what is making you happy right now or in this season of life?
Right now, right this day, we just had our hopefully last freeze of the season. So all of my plants survived the winter and they are starting to come out. And I do not have a green thumb, but I have been trying to learn, and I've spent a lot of time and money in our yard. And so I'm starting to see the benefits, and it makes me so happy.
Oh, I love that. All right, number 3, what is a goal you have for yourself this year?
My goal this year is to host a virtual summit helping parents get out of debt and start building wealth.
Ooh, super fun. I love my summits. They have been so fun. So we will talk offline and I will help make sure you are a success in that. I would love to be able to help contribute to make that goal a reality for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. All right. Thanks, Brittany. Have a lovely day. I loved this conversation with Brittany. She is proof that you do not need to earn 6 figures to feel in control of your money and to build a life of freedom and abundance. And I will be honest, the idea of having more bank accounts sounded complicated to me at first, and you heard me talk about the different ones we have. Clearly, I am not following the right system. So I am excited to set up Brittany's system because I loved the way that she explained it. It actually makes so much sense. It is like giving every dollar that comes into your life a job and creating boundaries that protect your spending, your savings, and your sanity, and allowing you to make more empowered decisions. But now it is your turn. What part of this episode stuck out to you the most? Are you going to add a new bank account? Maybe you're going to automate something, or maybe you're finally just going to look at what you're spending with fresh eyes. Whatever it is, come on over and let me know. You can DM me or leave a comment for this episode on Instagram. It's at Wannabe Clutter Free there. Or you can join our private Facebook group, the Wannabe Minimalist Family Group on Facebook, and share. We're going to have a thread for this episode going on over there, so come join in the conversation. And if this episode helped you, the best way to support the show is by leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or on YouTube as well. It only takes a minute, but it makes a big difference, and it helps other busy moms like you find their way to a clutter-free and more intentional life. And special thanks again to Brittany for coming on the show and sharing her system. You can grab the show notes for everything we talked about at wannabeclutterfree.com/260. Again, wannabeclutterfree.com/260. All right, so until next time, take care, keep things simple, check out your budget and see what you can do. Let go of this idea that it all has to be perfect, and don't be so afraid to uncover what you've been spending your money on. It's going to make a world of difference for you, and I cannot wait to hear how it goes. Remember, I believe in you. I know it's difficult, but I know you can do it as well. All right, I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter-Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.